Join us in this session of today, where, as you might have seen, I'll be speaking about how we can use our product to support the health of our joints. But just in case you are joining us for the first time, let me introduce myself. My name is Betty OLOO, a long-time Neolife distributor, and always find it a pleasant thing to be able to speak about our products on these Thursday evening trainings. So today, as I said, we are going to be speaking about joint health, some lifestyle points about this, as well as the products that we can use in maintaining joint health. The first thing that I wanted to say, just part of the introduction, and I'm sure as all of us are aware, we are all built to move. We are built to move unless maybe we have a disability, which is unfortunate. But in general, we evolved to move. Our ancestors spent long periods each day in order to hunt for their food, search for their food, in order to socialize, and of course, sometimes in order to escape from danger. So movement has always been part of our life. And the joints in our skeleton are a very important part of movement because they make it possible for us to move. And not only that, movement is actually good for our joints. So, some lifestyle points here. The first thing I wanted to speak about are movement, activity, and exercise. All these should be a part of our life. Yeah, simply sometimes we move in order to do the things that to do with our to do with our day to day. There are some activities that we do specifically for benefit to ourselves, and also we have what we normally refer to as exercise, and this can be something we deliberately set out to do in order to improve our health. Our activities can also be sports activities that we do for pleasure, and as well as for our health. So the most common movement that we have that I think all of us would like to maintain for all of our lives or most of our lives is walking. So walking is a very important and very excellent movement. It does not have a high impact on our joints, and it can be done in all the stages of our lives. So we should try to incorporate walking in our life as much as possible because it is beneficial in very many ways to our joints, but also to our overall health. So if you are thinking of maybe a movement to add to your lifestyle, walking is a very good one. And the thing about walking is can be simply just something that you're doing as part of your life, or it can actually be a part of your exercise program. You can walk at different speeds in order to make it more cardiovascular, or you can go at a more relaxed pace. And then, of course, to maintain our joint health, we should try to find opportunities to walk in our day. Maybe in running our errands, it could be doing chores outdoors. It could be maybe we get into the habit of parking a little bit far from where we are going so that we walk. We get an opportunity to walk a little bit. We can decide to take stairs instead of taking the lift. So things like that can increase the amount of walking that we are doing. Another type of movement that I wanted to mention are the type of movement that maintain our flexibility and our range of movement. Now, if you think about it, often we don't think about our joints until they start either hurting or they stop. They stop working the way we want them to work. Let us say, for instance, we have always had a very easy time going upstairs, but now our knees are aching. So each time we see stairs, we wonder how we are going to manage. So that means that maybe the flexibility of our knee joint has reduced, or the range of motion of the joint has been reduced. So we need to be aware that it's also important to maintain flexibility and the full range of motion of our joints. Sometimes we find we are very concerned about doing exercises like cardiovascular exercises to make sure that our heart is working well. We may be lifting weights to ensure that we build and maintain a good musculature, but we don't really think about flexibility and range of movement. And what ends up happening is that we find that we get stiff and our ability to move in a smooth and energetic way gets reduced. So we start maybe being bent over or moving in a stiff-legged way. So for that reason, when we are thinking about this, the lifestyle which contains movement, activity, and exercise, we should also think about flexibility and range of movement type of activity, because this will safeguard our ability to move and to work, and also to avoid having pain that prevents us from moving. When possible, of course, we should include exercises that improve our flexibility. There are certain styles of exercises that are good for this. For example, yoga or Pilates. There is a Chinese type of exercise called Tai Chi. There are also calisthenics and so on. So all these can be things that we maybe do a bit of research about, maybe consult a bit about, and we include them in our healthy movement regimen to incorporate in our healthy lifestyle. We, of course, as I mentioned, we are aware that cardiovascular exercises, apart from being good for our joints, is even better for our heart health, because cardiovascular exercise means that our heart is pumping harder. It's the type of exercise such as jogging, can be running, can be swimming, can be cycling, and so on. All these ensure when we feel that our heart rate is going up, it means that we are exercising our heart. And that means that our heart health is being taken into account. But if you think about it, if our joints are painful, it makes it very difficult for us to do any type of exercise, whether it is cardiovascular exercise or muscle building exercise. And certain types of cardiovascular exercise can be actually quite problematic once we have starting joint pain. So if you think about maybe you are in the habit of running, or you are in the habit of cycling, it might be over time that you notice problems here and there. And that is when we start being concerned about our joints. So then I want to go to the next point. So we've spoken about movement and so on. But the big hazard for our joint health is sedentary lifestyle. That is a lifestyle which involves habitual prolonged sitting. So this unfortunately has become a thing in our modern lives, because an increased number of jobs can be done without having to get up. They can be done sitting, as for example, at this moment, I'm here giving this training while sitting down. And we can spend the entire day maybe just working very hard, but not really getting up and moving around. So that is what I'm speaking about when I speak about sedentariness. And this is not a normal way of being for us, because, as I said, we are built to move. And if we sit for prolonged periods, one of the first problems that we will notice is going to be back pain. So quite a number of time in the Q&A, I think I've mentioned people who are having different types of problems with their spinal column. And one of the main reasons for back problems is prolonged sitting every day. Of course, it does not mean that we should never sit down. What it means that if it is a chronic thing, it's a daily thing for prolonged hours, then we have to think about what we can do to mitigate against it. So, for example, I've noticed that some people in their offices, they don't sit on a chair, they sit on those elastic balls, and those balls allow them to move quite easily, maybe to turn their spine this way and that, and relax and contract their back muscles, so that even though they are sitting for long periods, they are able to move their back around. When you're sitting in a chair, your back is in a static position, and this puts a strain on the discs of your spine. And over a long while, you may find that the discs start getting, the gaps in the disc start getting under strain, and eventually you are going to have disc problems and some serious back problems. So it is advisable to think about that if your lifestyle involves prolonged hours of sitting every day. Think about ways in which you can incorporate movement. As I said, you can sit on those elastic balls, or you can decide that from time to time you get up and move around, maybe do some stretching and and gentle exercises just to keep yourself from having been sitting for hours and hours. Then one of the things which we contributes to this, of course, is that we've got a lot of many places, not everywhere, of course, have got a lot of efficient transport means, which means that we no longer need to walk for long distances. Another place where we get into the habit of being sedentary is school. Because if for all of us, I think who have been to school, the teachers always wanted us to sit quietly for long periods, and you'd be complimented for sitting quietly in your desk doing your work. But I hope that as we are becoming aware of the problem of sedentariness and childhood obesity, our education systems are also taking into account the importance of giving children periods in which they can go out and play and then come back in and be able to incorporate movement in their day rather than sitting for hours and hours. If this is not the case with your child's school, in case you're a parent, then I think that after school there should be opportunities for your children to play vigorously so that they mitigate against those long hours of sitting down. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is that once the children have come home from school, they have to do their homework, and then maybe they want some entertainment on a screen. And then from there, it's bed, which means that the whole day would have been spent in minimal physical activity. So as parents, maybe that is something we need to take into account and keep in mind the importance of movement for children, especially, but for everybody. But I think children, since they are still learning habits and their bodies are growing, we need to take this very much into account. Okay, so from there, I wanted to speak about some of the things that cause joint problems. Most joint problems, of course, unless we are we are injured in an accident, for instance. I'm not speaking about such cases because against an accident, we do not have any power to prevent. But of course, if we are injured in that way, it could be the beginning of our joint problems. But I'm thinking more about lifestyle things, such as, for example, osteoarthritis is one of the common complaints we have about joint problems. That's when the cartilage within the joint, so the joint contains cartilage as well as a fluid. The cartilage is a slippery white material that you find on the head of bones. And inside the joint, there's also a fluid which makes sure that since the cartilage is smooth and slippery, and the synovial fluid, that is the fluid in the joint, also is like a lubricant. This makes it possible for the joint to move. But unfortunately, when arthritis sets in, you may find that the cartilage, which makes the movement of the joint easy, starts to wear out, and this can be painful and can also start inflammation. Then we also have a different kind of arthritis that is called rheumatoid arthritis. This one is an autoimmune condition. And as we have mentioned previously, autoimmune conditions start from the gut. When our gut lining becomes damaged in one way or another, we end up with our immune system overreacting to normal body tissue. So maybe we'll mention more about that when we are speaking about gut health. And I think we did mention it when we are speaking about immune health. But rheumatoid arthritis is an example of when our immune system starts attacking our joint tissue, and thereby causing inflammation and swelling, and the joints loses its ability to move. Then we also have gout, which is another one, also fairly common, which is another inflammatory one that is related to our diet. So these conditions, as I've said, are all linked to inflammation. They can also be due to repetitive movement. So, for example, if you're a tennis player or a golf player, because you keep on doing the same movement over and over again, maybe in practicing, the joint might become overstrained, and with time it might become arthritic. Or simply The inflammation in a localized place, it could be the elbow if you're a tennis player, it could be the shoulders if you're a golf player, or some of these other sports. So that is inflammation. Then aging also, of course, will have its effects on our joints. Especially this would be if the joint is not well positioned, and it is the positioning of joints is very, very important, especially in your habits of sitting or standing or doing things, but also after an injury. So we've said injuries, accidental injuries are unavoidable. If they happen, they happen. But when a joint has been injured and is healing, it is important to work with your doctor or if it's your therapist to make sure that the joint heals with the correct position, because one of the ways in which osteoarthritis begins, is when the joint has been injured and heals in a wrong position. And that joint will usually tend to be out of place and will tend to have an even wearing out of the cartilage. And that is where how the arthritis will begin there. This is also, for example, if you are sitting in those poor positions where you are causing inflammation on your back or on your hips and so on. So wear and tear, but the joints are supposed to rebuild themselves. So it's not necessarily that we should not use our joints. So the wear and tear does not mean that we are doing too much with our joints. What it means is that if there's something wrong with the way the joint is sitting, then it is going to experience a wear and tear that's going to be problematic. If it is a normal wear and tear, our body is able to build back cartilage when it has worn down and rectify the position. But it's good to be aware that the joint needs to be in the correct place, in the correct position after being injured. So then, I mentioned also that inflammation can be due to diet or it can also be due to illness. As I said, for instance, in terms of illness, rheumatoid arthritis, for example, can lead to inflammation in our joints. And gout can be inflammation due to our diets. But also, we just also need to be aware that the things, some of those problem foods that we are always talking about, things like sugar, things like the factory fats, they do contribute to systemic inflammation, so that our whole body is in a state of low grade inflammation, not a high inflammation like when we've had an injury, but like a slow underground inflammation, which shows itself in various ways. It can show itself in terms of things like lupus, or it can show itself in other ways, including these types of arthritis. So just to be aware that when we talk about cleaning up your diet and eliminating unhealthy foods, it's because they are the drivers of they are some of the drivers of systemic inflammation, which will now manifest in different ways. And we should take care to resolve those kinds of inflammation. Then another factor that leads to joint problem is, of course, obesity. When we have got excessive body weight, it puts a strain on our joints and contributes to damage to the joints. This is especially true of the weight-bearing joints, for example, our hips, and in fact, especially our knees. And I think you're aware that many people have got knee problems. It may not be that they are overweight, but a lot of time, one of the things that results in being heavy is that we start having pains in the ankle joints, the knee joints, and the hips, because they have to carry the entire weight of the body. And this can lead to the joints being damaged and being the cartilage in the joint starting to wear out and become inflamed. So to maintain a healthy body weight is important for all the many reasons we speak about often, but that also includes the health of our joint. The more normal our weight is, the more our joints will be comfortable in carrying us around in a healthy, pain-free way. Then, of course, here again, the next point I have is about certain medications which we can take that can speed up the wearing out of our joints. And that is some of the pain medication that you buy over the counter. They are not only harmful to important organs like the liver and the gut, they also can be harmful to our joints. And so, just for us to be aware that this over the counter pain medication are supposed to be taken as a short term, let's say, pain, temporary relief from pain. So we take them for just temporary relief, but we need to be aware that we should be having a long term plan for dealing with what is causing us that pain. Because if we continue to take the over the counter medication, some of them eventually will lead to problems with our joints or with our guts. Remember, if we have problems with our gut, it can be the beginning of autoimmune illness. So that problem will come from our guts and start manifesting in other places in our body as autoimmune illnesses. So rather than chronically taking this pain medication, we need to resolve the actual root of the problem so that we get rid of the problem in the long term. As a temporary relief, they are okay, but they are not formulated to be for long-term use. You may also have noticed that our genetics can contribute to our tendency towards having joint problems. So some people may start having joint problems in the fairly young, and others may be able to move around quite nicely well into their old age. I remember there was a granny where I grew up who at 90 could still climb trees and get firewood from the top of a tree. She was the mother of a friend of my dad's. So there are people who do not have that tendency towards arthritis. But also remember that people in that age used to not have a lot of the rubbish food that we are eating, which are contributing to a lot of our problems. So then I want to finish this part by saying that activity benefits our joint always. So when a joint is hurting or in problem, it does not mean that we need to stop moving it. We should find a way of maintaining moving it with minimum pain. So for instance, if you've got pain in your knees, the solution is not to stop using your knees or to tie your knee in a band. It is to find exercises like gentle swinging of your knees or gentle walking, because then the joints heal by having the fluid in within the joint circulating. So remember I said you have got what is called the synovial fluid inside the joint. This fluid moves when the joint is moving. If you keep the joint immobile, then the healing of the joint will also be slowed down. So movement is very good for joints, because joints are there to move, and when they move, they heal better and they remain healthy in the long term. So rather opt for gentle exercise that does not worsen the pain and does not put impacts on the joint, but try not to eliminate movement altogether. Because what you notice when a joint is hurting is that you try not to use it, you avoid using it. Maybe when you sit down, you don't want to get up because your ankles or your knees are going to hurt. And that is understandable, but you need to find an alternative movement that does not have as much pain in it. Because one of the best ways to heal a joint is by keeping it moving. Even as you're using the supplement, which is what I'm going to be speaking about just now, it is better that you're moving your joint. So then, which are our supplements that we recommend for joint health? So our supplements will work in different ways to help our joints remain healthy or to help the body to heal its joints. One of them is by sustaining the joint against wear and tear. Remember, as time passes, the joint is going to have some wear and tear, but we have an inbuilt system for replacing and rebuilding the worn, and our bones are always rebuilding. Our cartilage is always rebuilding. So unless the bone is broken or the joint is completely disconnected, we can actually restore through our body system. We can do some repair work, and the supplements help with that. Also, the supplements help with reducing inflammation or regulating inflammation, which you've said is one of the manifestations of joint problems. And then, of course, we provide nutrients for rebuilding the components of the joint, whether it is the bone or the cartilage or the synovial fluid. So the first one there is Neolife Shake that I would recommend. This is our protein supplement. And remember, our body is made of protein, so New Life Shake will play an important role. Next, I have omega-3 salmon oil. So omega-3 salmon oil counteracts inflammation and regulates it. Remember that inflammation is a normal part of our body's mechanism for healing. The thing that is problematic is when we have chronic systemic inflammation that is all over our bodies. So omega-3 is useful in regulating inflammation in our bodies and many other things. So this is an important supplement for our joint health and for many aspects of our health. It should be one of our continuing supplementation members. And then we also have, we can use multimineral or CalMag. Remember, CalMag is contained in multimineral. And this provides minerals for building bone as well as building blood. So that is our third recommendation. We also recommend full motion, which is our specific for joint health, but also help with other aspects of our bodies like gut health. But full motion gives our bodies the raw material to repair and rebuild cartilage, which has been worn out in the joints. Then we have flavonoid complex. Flavonoid complex is important in also resolving inflammation, but also in laying down of collagen. These days, I don't get those questions about collagen anymore. But collagen is one of the proteins that is found all over our bodies. It is in everywhere from our fingernails to our connective tissue to our joints and so on. So flavonoid complex helps in working with the collagen to build connective tissue and then build things like tendons and ligaments and so on. All these are things that help our joints to function. So for that reason, we have flavonoid complex. Remember, flavonoid complex contains a little bit of vitamin C. So you can also use vitamin C. It will help in the same way as the flavonoid complex. Then we have vitamin D or sun exposure. We have D, either the vegan D, which is the vitamin D that is made from plant material. We also have vitamin A plus D, which is the one that is made from fish oil. So if you're a vegan, you can opt for vegan D. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you can opt for vegan D. If you are not, you can opt for vitamin A plus D. These are very important vitamin which helps resolve inflammation, but also in the absorption of calcium. So once we are taking CalMag, the vitamin D, either from the sun or from our supplement, will help in it being absorbed and laid in the correct places. Finally, we recommend magnesium complex, which eases joint soreness and supports good quality sleep. As with everything, our joints get healed when we are sleeping. And also, when our muscles are sore or our muscles are do not have correct strength, because sometimes as a result of an injury, what happens is that we may move in such a way that muscles which are supposed to have a certain amount of strength become weak, and then you have muscular imbalance. So when we speak about muscle imbalance, is when muscles which are supposed to work hand in hand have the wrong strength, so that one is too weak and the other one is too strong, and in that way they pull the joint out of place. This can happen, for instance, when you sit for a long time, then your buttock muscles can become weak, whereas the muscles on the front of the legs are strong. And this means that the joint then comes out of its, the knee joint is affected by being pulled out of its normal posture, and that will cause knee pain. So magnesium helps in muscle soreness, and as I said, good sleep is also an important aspect of all our bodily health. So I see that we have run out of time, but I hope that those recommendations are ones that you can take. If you are not having any specific joint problems, or you have got young people in your household who are still growing, maybe doing sports, then I recommend that you make omega-3 salmon oil, multimineral, and flavonoids part of their day-to-day supplementation. Um, so that they are able to recover from injuries nicely. Because if you have got a person who is playing sports, injuries tend to be a part of either practice or performing. And so omega-3 helps a lot with that, together with the multimineral or calmer and full motion. That way, we sustain our joints in good health and make it possible for us to be able to move and go about our business for years to come. So now I think that I'm going to leave you there with those points that we have made today. I hope that you find them beneficial for yourself, because always you need to start with yourself. You are the one who's going to be needing to take this message out there, and then of course to your loved ones and those who come to you for assistance. So thank you very much. As we start this new month of April, I want to wish you all the best in the work that lies ahead in this month. And as I think I often say, the great thing about our business is every time we go out and do any part of our business, we'll be helping someone, whether in terms of better health or better financial situations. So thank you very much. Here is Pascal now standing by to take you through the next session of today's training.
Thank you very much, Betty.